Hello, my name is Caroline Leonard, and today we'll be talking about Chapter 2 from the book, which is also known as the Story's Focus. Alright, so we're going to start off with an introduction, which is just going to be a list of objectives that we will be going over throughout the duration of my presentation today. Alright, starting off with one goal. It's important to stick to one goal from the start all the way to the end, so that you can avoid confusion when you actually start, gathering material, actually start creating your presentation. Moving on, we're going to be talking about goal setting. It's an important step that people tend to skip because, it's easy to skip, but it's very important to not skip it because it can be used, to create outlines, to kind of figure out what results you want to be getting. So, what kind of goals you want to be meeting throughout your presentations. Moving on into impact and recall. This has got to do with your audience. So whether or not you are, relaying your information in a way that your audience is going to, be able to remember, so recall, and whether or not it is going to be having an impact on them when they leave. So, okay. And then moving on into presentation focus. And then after that, we're going to be talking about material gathering, and this is going to be talking about, the specific kind of tools that you can use to gather material, create outlines, like I said when I was talking about goal setting. Okay, and after the material gathering, we're going to be talking about inventing goals, making sure that you're having authentic information, original information. And after that, we're going to be going over conclusion. And that conclusion page is just going to basically be a summary, and it's going to go over everything that we talked about, kind of, summarize in simpler terms. All right, so moving on, one goal. So it is very important to stick to one goal when you start creating a presentation, because it's easy to kind of get confused and kind of make a mess, So also having one goal, it will provide you with focus and direction kind of when you start kind of brainstorming. So brainstorming, like I was just talking about, it's easy, but it's also easy to kind of lose focus when you start brainstorming, because you're kind of thinking of all these ideas at the same time, and again, going back to the one goal, having one goal is just, it's a good idea, because then you kind of know what you're working with, and you can move along through the steps of creating your presentation, gathering your material, and things like that. Also, keeping your focus on the result is a good way to stay on track. So if you kind of know where you want everything to go, then that kind of helps you to kind of stay tuned in to that one goal, and kind of keeps you from sidetracking and looking at other ideas that you were looking at. Okay, so goal setting. Like I was saying, goal setting is an important step that a lot of people do tend to skip, but it is important not to skip it, because goal setting is a good way to kind of create an outline for your presentation, if that makes sense. And going back to when we were talking about kind of figuring out the results that you want, that also kind of goes along goal setting, because you can set your goals and you can kind of figure out where you want everything to go and what you want your outcome to be. Okay, so a good goal is phrased as the answer to what do I want them to do. So that's a good question to kind of keep in mind when you're setting goals and you're gathering information and things like that, and when you're creating your presentation in PowerPoint. And like I said, people do tend to forget this step. So moving on, why do people tend to forget this step, or just maybe not even forget, just overlook and skip it? Why do people skip it? Most people are afraid of failure, and that is a pretty common thing when it comes to public speaking and presenting and things like that. But it is kind of hard to fail when your only goal at the moment is as simple as informing your audience. All you're doing is kind of compiling some information and delivering it to your audience. But it can be kind of nerve-wracking when you first start presenting and putting presentations together. Recall and impact. So what is recall and what is impact? Recall is whether or not your audience is going to remember what you told them, and impact is whether or not your audience is going to act upon the information that you told them. Okay, so these do kind of go hand in hand. They tend to overlap at times, but they are very different concepts. Okay, your audience, like I said, they can both have impact and recall from your presentations, but they do work together. Okay, so you can do this by giving your audience reason to act as you want them to act. So this kind of goes along with how you compile your information, how you put it, into your layout, and also how you deliver it. The way you deliver is very important to how you want your audience to react. So again, another good way to kind of leave an impact on them so that they, remember, as well as, let it have an impact on them, is to involve them. So, that would be letting them ask questions. That goes along with, like I said, how you deliver it. So that's eye contact, hand gestures, having a loud enough voice, and just overall, those can help you to connect with your audience as you present, and so on and so forth. So moving on into presentation focus. So we tend to force the focus on the audience by trying to figure out what they want to hear. And this can be kind of hard on you as a presenter because, you can get so worried about what they want to hear that you kind of get sidetracked off of, just working on your one goal. And I think that also goes along with that. That's why it's important to stick to one goal so you don't get sidetracked, so you're not too worried that, you're not telling them what they want to hear, but you're compiling your information and you're going out there with your one goal in mind to relay your information to the audience, okay? So by doing this, you can come off as cowardly, and you can also lose your authenticity. So authenticity is, your original ideas, the way that you present, and it can just kind of make you come off as kind of cowardly, like I was saying. So again, having original ideas can cause some controversy, but it will keep your audience interested. So, if you go out there with, controversial ideas, they're probably going to be more likely to recall what you had said, and it might have a bigger impact on them, versus if you go out there kind of with just, something that they might already know that's not original and that's not authentic to you as a presenter. Okay, so material gathering. Do not begin in PowerPoint because it can cause you to get caught up in the small details. So like font size, diagram setup. It's important to just not start there because you can get caught up in the small details. So using visual thinking tools can help you to keep sight of the bigger picture. And like I said, it will kind of keep you tuned in to your, the one goal that you decided on in the beginning so that you don't get sidetracked. Moving on. Visual tools, we were just talking about those. So a few main types are outliners, mind mapping applications, and concept mapping, okay? So these are just a good way to have an outline to put your material in, so then it can be in one place and you can move on to actually creating your presentation in PowerPoint. So after choosing one from above, you can begin to answer the question of what do I want to tell them, okay? So that kind of goes along with, creating your body. You can say, what do I want to tell them? That is going to be the information that is going to be in the body of your presentation, okay? So that's going to be like your main topics where you get to go into detail through each of them. And lastly, after that, your thoughts need to be put into an order. So that's when you're going to be putting your things into into an actual PowerPoint, and you're going to start kind of figuring out where you want certain topics to go and how you want them to go in order and things like that. Inventing the truth. So it is important to keep your information authentic to keep your audience interested. And we were just talking about original ideas and how original ideas can be controversial. And, controversial ideas are probably, your audience is going to be more likely to recall a controversial idea, versus, an idea that everyone might already know about. Okay, so authentic stories / information don't require a lot of practice to tell, because they're authentic and they're original, and you can usually just tell them or talk about your topics off the top of your head if they're original versus, not original. Authentic stories create empathy as well as action. So this is going to keep your audience kind of interested and in tune to what you're saying, and you're going to be able to stay connected to your audience throughout the duration of your presentation. All right, so conclusion. So we're just going to kind of tie everything up and summarize everything that we've talked about today. So we started off with our one goal and how it is important to stick to one goal from the beginning all the way to the end. And then we went into goal setting, and that is an important step that you don't need to skip because it could kind of help you set up an outline. And then we talked about how it's important to involve your audience as well as to have original ideas. And original ideas, can be controversial. And again, that can, your audience is more likely to recall an original / controversial idea. All right, and then we talked about how it's important to use visual thinking tools. And then lastly, we talked about how it's important to keep your information authentic. Thank you.